Hi, this is Max Cudworth, and you're listening to Mike Delivers with Michael Biseglia. Mike is my cousin, and he's a great guy with really bad gas. In fact, Michael used to lead a stoopball team called the New Jersey Farts that played in a league in our grandparents' backyard. His career record is 35-26 with one championship.
Need more Mike Delivers? Head over to patreon.com or download the Patreon app and type in Mike Delivers. Get a full catalog of bonus podcasts like the one time Mike crashed his wife's 2007 Toyota RAV4, behind-the-scenes videos, and more food reviews. Go to Patreon and check it out now.
My name is Mike Biseglia. I'm 37 years old, and I use the Lawnmower 3.0. Use my promo code, Mike Delivers, all one word, and you can get 20% off plus free shipping on your own Lawnmower 3.0. What is the Lawnmower 3.0? It is an electric trimmer that cleans your ball hair. I recommend it, I use it, and it's helped my life tremendously. As a 37-year-old that's feeling bad about himself because he turned 37 and the age has turned a corner, the best thing I have going for me right now is the Lawnmower 3.0. Use my promo code, Mike Delivers, all one word, you get 20% off. You can even have mine. You can have my used Lawnmower 3.0.
Welcome inside Mike Delivers from his wife's 2017 Toyota RAV4. Here's your host, Mike Biseglia.
That's right. This is Mike Delivers, episode number 91. And I'm your host, Mike Biseglia. And I'm coming to you from my wife's 2017 Toyota RAV4. I'm outside of the Joe's Crab Shack in Clifton, New Jersey, which will be featured on episode number 92 coming up on Thursday. I've done 1,160 deliveries, and I have yet to steal food from anybody. You can find this podcast where all major pods are found, including Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn. And if you go ahead into Apple Podcasts, please give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. If you've already done it, get a friend to do it. There'll be some perks for that moving on forward for episode 100, which, believe it or not, is just like a month out. The anniversary of this podcast actually just passed. I've done now a year worth of Mike Delivers podcast, which of course was originally Basketball Drives. Now, the first 3 episodes of Basketball Drives that came out were all released on the singular day of July 23rd, but the first one I ever recorded was back on July the 13th when I did it. So, kind of technically the year anniversary, although I guess technically, July 23rd when the episodes came out is when we'll give that official title. But they are a year old of me recording, so it's just wild to say this out loud. A year of the Mike Delivers Basketball Drives brand has happened, and thank you to you guys. You've been amazing. All the support for the podcast, seeing the growth in just 1 year. 2-part, it feels weird that I ever had a part of my life where this podcast was not part of me, I should say. Like now, it's people know me as the Mike Delivers podcast. They talk to me about food reviews, stories from the road. It's weird to think there was a time in my life where I didn't even do any of this. But that was just a year ago. And my God, has a lot happened in this year. Just incredible. Awesome shit right there. Want to mention, we'll have some stories from the road coming to you in a matter of moments. Also, a fun interview for you guys today as well. It's with Ron. He's got a website called entrecourier.com. He also has his own podcast, Deliver on Your Business Podcast. And he is a delivery driver just like me. And I went on his podcast a couple of weeks ago, which was a blast. So I wanted to have Ron come on to my podcast. His pod is about, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and deliveries. The difference is it's more on the business side of things, and I love listening to his podcast because me as a delivery driver, I get some tips on how I can be more efficient and proficient at doing my job to make more money on the road. So I wanted to pick his brain. He'll come on in a little bit. We'll have the stories from the road and my interview with Ron here on episode 91. Don't forget, shout out to the O'Brien Creative Group. They are the guys that made my sick-ass amazing logo and brand identity community, helping the Mike Delivers podcast grow. It's more than just the podcast, it really is about the brand. So I highly recommend these guys. If you yourself are looking to do a podcast, or maybe your small business, anything, highly recommend the O'Brien Creative Group. Head on over to my show notes. I've got information there, o'briencreativegroup.com. Hook you up with my guy, Drew O'Brien. Patreon page continues to grow. My wife and I just did a recording the other night. Some blind food taste tests. I think this is tremendous. $4 a month, you get the Mike Delivers bonus podcast. You get a video version of the podcast, and you get to see me try nasty foods. I had some tuna fish from a bag, and it was fucking disgusting. Did I guess what it was? You'll have to find out on the Patreon page. And the original Patreon content, how I crashed my wife's 2007 Toyota RAV4. The full story, the full episode is archived on there if you want to hear that podcast. Right before I get to stories from the road, I just want to mention this. It's been really therapeutic doing deliveries. I love doing it. I've mentioned this before, but, I was feeling a little down the other day. I don't want to say like depressed, but you just kind of in a slump, sort of say, in the morning. And I did the deliveries, and I left the IHOP in, where was I? In Irvington, New Jersey. And I left this IHOP, and I had a smile on my face. And I don't know what it is about doing Uber Eats deliveries. Maybe because it's just my secondary job, and it's not my full-time job, so the stress and the pressure of making money isn't ultimately on my shoulders. But I left it, and I just was like, I feel good right now. I felt relaxed and I felt happy. And I went into those drives that morning feeling a little stressed and anxious. And I don't know what it is about this food delivery gig, but it totally relaxes me and makes me feel comfortable. I know like in the beginning, there was like a stigma, like would I be embarrassed to tell people that I'm doing Uber Eats on the side? And it's been the exact opposite. I personally, I'm proud of it and I love it. And I'll tell anybody this, like, I highly recommend it if you need a second gig or a first gig. I mean, you can make money out there. A quick update. I had mentioned in the previous episode, odd episode on episode 89, trying to track down a man that's on pace to make $100K in a year as an Uber Eats driver. We exchanged emails back and forth. The timing hasn't worked yet, but he's going to come on my podcast at some point, hopefully in early August. We are going to reconnect. But Sam Lyons, he was in the news for his lofty goal of trying to do $8,000 at a month, which he did. He's out west. We did get a hold of each other. He's very busy. I mean, you're doing 12-hour Uber Eats every day. You're going to be busy. But he agreed to come on the podcast. It's just going to be a future date once he has a little bit of time to settle down and isn't doing all these deliveries. But point is, it's relaxing, it's helpful, and you can make some money. So mad props to just being an Uber Eats driver or DoorDash driver. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy it. All right, I'm going to have an interview in just a matter of moments with my guy Ron, EntreCourier.com, and Deliver on Your Business podcast. But first, let's get to stories from the road. Now, as this pandemic has hit, it's definitely going to change the way we view a lot of things. One thing that I think we'll all have a different view on now moving forward is taps. That's taps for beers. That's taps for sodas. That's taps for anything. Do you want your cup going to the tap to getting a refill or getting a first drink that may have had another cup on there that was germy? I picked up from a burger spot in Bloomfield, New Jersey, and this person got a soda from the tap. I understand that it's a one-time cup, and they're probably not going with cups multiple times to the said fountain for a tap drink. I have to say, though, there's something disgusting now about thinking about getting a tap soda and driving it to somebody's house that was initially inside a restaurant that could have had another cup on there with germs on it. I don't know. Maybe the said employee in there is having his or her Diet Coke and they keep putting it up to the fountain and their lips, which touched the cup, then went to the fountain drink. I personally don't know if I could do it anymore. But this person I picked up a soda for and a burger and fries, she didn't mind. So I hope you enjoyed your drink. And I'm just going to say this. Different times now with this pandemic, I personally not ordering from the fountain. It finally happened. Picked up an order from Stuffed Grass-Fed Burgers in Montclair, New Jersey, one of my favorite local spots to pick up for lunch and dinner, not just for pickups because the parking's tremendous, but to actually eat. Love that place. And I picked up an order, and the total said drive would make me $4. So not a very far drive, just a mile or two down the road, but real quick, easy, $4 in and out, not bad at all. The order, so much food, multiple burgers, multiple fries, and multiple homemade milkshakes. This was a big boy order. Mile down the road, I get to the house. It says, please leave the food right outside the door and ring the doorbell to let us know that you're there. Before I can even ring the doorbell, the door opens up. And what do I smell? That pot smell. And I typically hate when I smell that because you know what it means? I don't mind that you're getting high. Do your thing. It means you're fucking not going to tip me. You never tip me. But the times changed. For the first time in Mike Delivers history, somebody that was high tipped me. And not only did they tip me, this said man left me a $10 tip, an all-time record for somebody that's high because it was more than $0 and a very good tip at that at $10. And I found it fascinating that he opened the door to get his food because my guess here now is when he said he wanted to leave the food at the door and ring the doorbell, him and his group of friends, they didn't want, somebody to come in, whatever it might be, feeling a little paranoid. But something about me, looking at me, felt the safety and security to say, you know what? I'm going to open the door. I don't mind if the smell goes out and Mikey B can smell it. Mike Delivers, here's a $10 tip, and you're a trustworthy, good guy, and we do not think you're a narc. A big problem for me during this pandemic has been peeing on the road. I like to stay hydrated when I'm doing my deliveries. Diet Cokes, Diet Sprites, waters. It's fun to have a drink with you. You can't do that anymore. One, you got to be a little more precautious. You got to be a little more cautious because, well, germs are being spread. And then number two, I can't be drinking anything because, literally, I don't drink anything anymore because you would pee on the road. And in the past, you could go into said McDonald's. I even had a segment, the places I like to pee on the road. Can't do that anymore. Every restaurant you go into, you cannot use the restroom. They've all been blocked off. It goes for obvious reasons. You know what's going on with restaurants right now. So with that said, what do you do if you have to pee? And the other day, I really had to pee. I did not have any drinks in the car, but before I left, I was loaded up on coffee and caffeine and water. And I thought I'd gone to the bathroom enough to get it all out of me, but I really did not. And this was hours into the trip. I've never had to pee so bad in my life that I actually had to go home, stop my orders, and go to the bathroom. And maybe less of a story from the road, but just a dilemma from the road. What do you do now as a driver if you have to pee? Other drivers that listen to this, DM me, Mike Delivers Pod. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can even email me, MikeDeliversPod@gmail.com. Let me know, what the hell do you do when you have to pee and there's nowhere to pee? Back-to-back assholes. That's where we'll go right here. Asshole number one. I'm driving with a food order in the car. It's bubble teas that are in this plastic saran wrap inside of a plastic bag. So I have to make sure that these teas don't flip over. Now, they're wrapped pretty well, but at the same time, they're loose teas. I can't have them flying all over my car. The speed limit on this one road is 25 miles per hour. I'm going 35 miles per hour, 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Still probably a little too fast for the road, but not an obnoxious speed, the right amount where I feel comfortable. If there was a cop, I'd probably slow it down a little bit. I'm going 35 miles per hour. There is a guy behind me who is so fucking pissed off. He's right up my car. He is honking at me. You can see him in the background putting his hands in the air, looking like he's so disturbed and pissed off. I have nowhere to go. It's a one-lane road, so I can't move over. It is what it is. Now, he is up my ass for a good 2 minutes, like really pissed off. And I'm driving along, and I'm just going, you know what? This guy's going to have to deal with it. He's being a real asshole. And as the drive is coming to an end on this road, and there's a turnoff to the left where you can get on the highway, which is where I'm trying to go, on the right-hand side is a family. On the left-hand side is a family. On the left-hand side, the dog is in the yard. And this dog goes sprinting off of the lawn and goes towards that other family and goes flying across the road. I hit the brake. Avoid the dog, miss the dog, slide over. You can see the people to my left having a major panic attack and freaking out, which I completely get. This person's dog just flew on over to the other side. And then the guy behind me, I'm worried about him because I don't want him to rear end my ass and come flying into me. So I have to brake, slide around, avoid the dog, avoid the guy in the back. And at this point, there's finally some space. So I drive over to the right and let this maniac pass me. How angry do you have to be to want to go more than 10 miles over the speed limit and be that ferocious on the road? Thank you, God, that I wasn't a maniac and decided to speed because this guy was being a jerk-off behind me, or else this dog that was coming over to the side of the road, I mean, it could have been toast and it could have been a major disaster. So please, if you're driving on the road, don't be an asshole. Asshole number 2. Doing a drop-off delivery. It's a small road that is one way for traffic. And the man tells me he's going to pick up my food and to wait in my car. The guy is on his steps. He sees that I'm coming. I stop the car, put on my flashers for literally, and I said that weird, literally 5 seconds. Roll down the window, hand over the food to the guy. Just that fast, there is a man honking at me, pissed off as all can be. I hand the guy the food, mosey on over, and leave. This order took an extra 15 seconds of this guy's life. I then drive up ahead, and it's a right turn only, and as I'm about to go over into the right turn lane, he slides past me to the right, flips me off, and goes, "F you, asshole!" I understand New Jersey's aggressive for drivers, but you couldn't wait 10 seconds so I could drop off this man's pancakes? How much of a rush do you have to be? And again, I reiterate, you are an asshole. So those are the stories from the road for episode 91. Let's get to the interview now. My conversation with Ron. He's got his own podcast, Deliver on Your Business Podcast. Also, you can find his website, entrecourier.com. I love his information. He's giving you the business side of things in the gig economy for drivers out there like me and you who might be listening. Great information. I was on his podcast a couple of weeks ago. I love spending time with other Uber Eats, DoorDash, delivery drivers. I think it's fascinating to pick their brains. So we're going to have a conversation here. We're going to get into some of his trends that he sees on the roads, the best way to make money, and what it's like being a delivery driver out in Denver, Colorado. So my conversation now with Ron, Deliver on Your Business Podcast, entrecourier.com. Take a listen, everybody. You had mentioned this when I went on your podcast, which I found to be so fascinating, was you were like, oh no, there's another delivery driver that's doing a podcast. Oh no, like how is this even possible? But you know, you listen to my pod, I've listened to yours, and it's a nice yin and yang balance of just podcast content out there, but very different. So first of all, Mr. Entre Courier, Ron, thank you so much for coming on the Mike Delivers podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be able to come on and get on a better podcast.
No, that is not the case at all. Different podcast, but not better podcast.
Okay. Yep.
And it's fun too, because you think about it, it's like there's a whole world out there that you and I have created and started to produce where delivery drivers have a platform, and not just on your end because you have the podcast, but you have a great website in entrecourier.com as well. So it's just wild, Ron, if you think about the platform that you and I are putting out there for different delivery drivers. So I want to say you and we are ahead of our time.
Yeah, I would say so. I remember listening to a guy one time who was talking about stuff with rideshare, and he said, there's something really missing out there is, a similar type of website for delivery. And of course, I'm sitting there thinking, well, wait, I've got a delivery site. but I was just getting off the ground at the time. But there's a couple guys that do some YouTube, but there's not much beyond that. There's not really anything put out there, I think, beyond, what we're doing. I think there's a couple guys that are trying to get some things off the ground. And I remember seeing another website probably when I first started doing delivery and looking for stuff, and then it went dormant. And so I'm pretty sure I'm not the only thing out there, or that we're not the only ones out there doing anything like this or anything, but it's not as easy to find. Maybe that's the way to put it.
No, it really isn't. And like for me, I like listening to your pod because it helps me learn. And also it's like a good comforting blanket. I think as a driver, when I'm out there and I'm experiencing different things on the road, it's kind of nice to have your voice in the background during deliveries or when I'm just kind of doing work at my house, giving advice and tips. And you do a lot of stuff on the business end of things, which I think is so fascinating. And you got me thinking in different ways. In one particular episode where you're talking about when you're on the road making decisions on, am I going to go to this restaurant? Should I be going to this area? So I'm curious from your end, just the thought process and the background on how you figured out your schedule, your ideas, your concepts of where you're going. That was just based on a lot of experience, and how you came up with really basically making a roadmap for where you want to go when you're out on the road doing deliveries.
Yeah, it got started, I would just say with, thinking about that whole concept of being an independent contractor to begin with. And I had, worked in telecom before and I was business manager for a nonprofit. And I remember, especially as a nonprofit, they were using independent contractors to do some stuff that I already knew then. It was like, no, we can't do that, guys. We got to put them on payroll because we are trying to control the work that they're doing. And so then, you sign on with this stuff, and we're independent contractors, and we got so many people out there thinking that okay, we're still employees, and so we're going to take everything that Grubhub or Uber Eats or anybody throws at us, and we got to listen to what they have to say. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, we're independent contractor. We're running a business, so we've got the right to run this as a business. And so, then I just started trying to use that, first for myself, and then trying to put that out for other people. Is think like a business owner and make your decisions, and treat these guys as your customers, not your bosses. And it's a totally different mindset, I think, out there.
Yeah. My problem, for example, is, and I want to get better at this as a delivery driver, is the order comes in and I'm just so excited to get something that I'm not making the right decision. Is this the right order? Is this going to a restaurant that's going to lead to a couple more orders? Is the price amount the right amount that I need to go forward? Is the total mileage something I should be looking for? And I still find myself, and this is a problem, is I'll get an order. It comes in, it pops up on my Uber Eats screen, and it says $8.52. And then, I'm not even really looking at the miles or minutes. And all of a sudden it says like an hour and 6 minutes. And maybe I could have done, definitely could have done a better job of trying to find orders that bounce back to back to back. How have you found it for yourself? Sort of like, because it's interesting because you'd only have a certain amount of time to make a decision. What's your decision-making process like when an order comes in on Uber Eats? It says the minutes, the amount in there, and the location. What is your thought process? And do I accept this order or do I decline it to look for the next one?
Yeah, with Uber Eats, it's very different than all of the others. And I call it kind of the reverse cherry picking. Because you got guys that are on DoorDash and Grubhub, and they'll do their cherry picking based on the dollar amount. It's got to be $10, it's got to be $12, or so much for me to take that delivery. And with Uber Eats, it's like the higher that they're paying, probably the lower probability that I'm going to take that order, because the difference with Uber Eats is you don't have the tip amount in there, and the other thing with Uber Eats is that they do pay a lot more for your distance than anybody else does. If you got a longer delivery, they're going to take care of you better, which is a good thing. But what that means is, when, most of your orders are coming in at $4 or $5 and then one pops up at $9, that's going to be a long delivery.
Right.
So that's the first thing I think that I look at is like, is it really high? And of course, part of it is you got to just be paying attention to what's coming in ordinarily anyway. But anymore, I think what I do is I tend to look at the minutes. I look at the minutes and I look at the restaurant. If it's going to be, I'm trying to shoot for stuff that's going to take 20 minutes or less. And my experience so far has been that the estimated minutes that they give you has been actually pretty good. They've done a pretty good job, I think, of estimating how much time it's going to take. The wild card, of course, is the restaurant. That's why you got to look at the restaurant, because you get some places, look at this Imperial Chinese here in Denver that you just know, add 20 minutes.
Right.
You just know that it's going to take longer. And some of it has to do with, I think, knowing your market.
Sure.
But let me ask you this. I mean, do you feel like your instincts on deliveries have gotten better over time, just with your experience and everything?
Yes, definitely. That's a good question. Absolutely. I feel like, and like you mentioned with the restaurant that said you would add 20 minutes, you have an idea now moving forward. All right, I'm going to accept an order from this spot, and I know what to expect when I go in there, what the timing will be like. Will the food be ready? Will I have to be waiting? Will certain restaurants go to a different area that I'm used to? And you can formulate in your head sort of like this idea of what's going to happen, which from listening to you, I feel like I now need to like do a better job of what's in my head and putting it on paper and laying out a plan, because it's in there and it's like I have an idea of what I'm going to do, and I know that where I want to go, but I haven't made it like official. So from listening to your podcast, I was like, I need to come up with ideas and jot this down. So maybe I have like, I know this is crazy to say, but a playbook when I go for orders, and I can kind of like use it as a quick cheat sheet to have an idea what's happening. So yeah, absolutely. And when you were talking about the different services, I'm interested because I'm only on Uber Eats, so I don't really know much about the other platforms out there. A two-parter. One, when you go on an app, are you using two at the same time? Let's start with that. Will you have DoorDash and Uber Eats, for example, on at the same time when you're doing deliveries?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I will. And generally, it's kind of like Uber Eats and Grubhub are probably my two main that I will turn on. Now, it wasn't that long ago that I probably did a lot more Grubhub than anybody else. And I can definitely feel it seems like Grubhub's losing business. They've slowed down quite a bit. It used to be they were the ones that if you got onto Grubhub does a scheduling thing where you have to sign up for time blocks.
Okay.
And so once you get onto a schedule, generally it used to be, I mean, you were going to stay busy.
Right.
And it was consistent, and that worked real nicely. When Uber Eats finally started adding in a lot of the information on the screen, we didn't used to see how many minutes. Nobody else is telling you how many minutes a delivery is going to take.
Right.
Uber Eats is the only one doing that. When they started throwing in, actually even giving you a map to where you were going, because they didn't even used to give you that.
Yeah,
it was just kind of like, I think you said it that way last week, like, let's just see where we're going. It was kind of like a wild ride.
It really was. Yeah, no, it really was and
so I didn't do a whole lot of Uber Eats. And then when they improved that, I started doing more. I think when it comes to accepting orders too, like the other thing, when I've got a platform where I know more about how much I'm going to get, then I'll use, I call it the 40 cent rule. Lately, I've been kind of bumping it up to 50 cents, where it's like, okay, this delivery, I've got to think that it's going to pay me 40 cents a minute for me to say, yeah, it's worth taking. And you just got to kind of do, and this comes more from your experience, I think, than anything else. You're looking like, okay, yeah, I'm probably going to be waiting maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the restaurant. It looks like it's going to take me maybe 15 minutes to do this drive because it's fairly short. So it's kind of like doing this quick calculation, and it's like, okay, it's going to take 20 minutes. So that thing's got to pay me $8 or more for me to do it. And when I started kind of looking at it that way, it seemed like the money I was making kind of evened out. And so, but yeah, I will do. I'll turn on a couple apps at a time, and sometimes then I'll kick in DoorDash. It just depends on how busy I am and what it's looking like. Generally, what will happen is I'm kind of wrapping up. I'm about done with an Uber Eats delivery, say, and then it's kind of like a competition to see who's going to give me the next best order. And at that point, once I accept that, I've committed to whatever order I've taken next. Every once in a while, something's going to pop up that is like picking up at the same restaurant or picking up real close, and both places are going the same distance. And then it will work all right. But I also try and make sure if I'm working more than one, that I'm not going to let a delivery from one platform slow me down on the other one. I believe that, once you take an order, you make a commitment to get that food to the customer in the best condition possible. And so if I'm going to take a $20 Grubhub order that's taking me 10 miles out of the way, and that's going to make me an hour late on the Uber Eats order, that's not fair to the Uber Eats driver, or the Uber Eats customer, whether they're going to tip or not. That's just, and I'm not honoring my commitment.
What have you found when you take an order and it's a good order and it puts you out like 5 to 10 miles away from where you're typically doing your orders in the areas that you're trying to keep, and you see another order pop in? What's your thought process? And okay, I'm going to spend the day maybe a little bit further than I'm normally doing? Or do you say, let me turn this off for a second and get back into the areas where I'm used to doing deliveries? What's your thought process there?
I'm going to kind of see where it's taken me, I get that every once in a while. And if another order pops up right away that's kind of in that area that doesn't look like it's going to take me way out of the way, or that isn't going to screw me up an awful lot, then I'll go ahead and take it. Usually what I'll do in that situation is I get dropped off, and then I kind of head back to somewhere that I want to be. But I'll keep the apps on. Because I'm certainly, even if there's a delivery, it doesn't pay as much. One, if it's taking me back in the direction I want to go, well, now I'm getting paid to get back there.
Sure.
And so that's all right. But two, it's even if I'm in an area that I don't like to be, a good paying order is a good paying order.
Right.
And I can always do my deadhead back after that second one if I need to. But there are times too where it's like I get stuck in kind of out in the boondocks, and we get out in kind of the mountain towns or something, and I'm amazed how far they can send you at times. I try to avoid something that's going to take me too far as it is.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes they get done, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I've got to head back, and I'll jump on the freeway and try and get into downtown or something where things are going to be steady. But I still keep the app on just because it's like, I don't care if I have a 2% acceptance rate or anything.
Right.
I'll go ahead and reject. And, fortunately the reject button is big enough that it's not a big distraction while you're driving.
And that's a fair point. Now you're in the Denver area, correct? Just outside Denver? All right. So you're just outside Denver. Have you ever had, this has happened to me a few times, like lately, and it's weird, and I'm curious if it's ever happened to you. This is strictly on Uber Eats, where, you have an idea of when you get an order, it's typically, you've seen the mileage, you've seen the distance, you have an idea, like generally, okay, this makes sense. This is like 550. Okay, this makes sense. This is 722. Once in a while, I'll see this where it'll be, okay, total delivery time, 22 minutes, order 1950. And I was like, this has happened a few times. Have you seen any of those outliers where it doesn't make sense, the amount of money you're making on a delivery in a good way?
Yeah. I just had that a couple days ago where I had one. It was almost the exact same thing that you said. It was like 4 miles and it was $19. And usually when I see that, if it's more than $10, it's almost an automatic reject. And I'm sitting here reaching towards the decline button. It's like, wait, what? This isn't as far. Something's wrong here. And my first thought was, is this something where it's just been so late and it's been kicked around so long that they just keep bumping that price up?
Right.
because you look at the breakdown on those, and they have what they call a trip supplement. When you if you tap on your pay summary, and then you kind of hit it again and you drill down, and it'll give you how much was the fare, how much was this trip supplement, and how much was the tip.
Yeah.
And that trip supplement's sitting there at like $14, and I don't know why it's that high.
Right.
But the funny thing is a couple times that I've had that, and I thought maybe it's just really late and they're really getting desperate to get that thing delivered.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's like, I get there and the food is just getting finished. So it's not like the food is late.
It doesn't make sense. And I've been trying to figure it out, and I've seen it. I mean, I'm okay with it. If it happened every time, it'd be fantastic. It's just a weird anomaly where
have you noticed this? When this happens, have you noticed that, do you ever see if you get a tip on those or not?
I should do a better job of keeping track. My memory says yes, I get a tip. Nothing like an exuberant amount. Just kind of general 10% of whatever the order was. I'm thinking there's been tips. How about on your end?
Well, that was the thing. Was like the last couple of times that I noticed that there was not a tip afterwards.
Mm. So it may just have been a disaster order, and you were the last line of defense.
Something I want to look into. I was thinking that I heard something that they were trying to introduce a thing where the customer could pay extra to try and expedite that, to guarantee that order gets to them faster. And so if that's the reason that it's so high, that maybe the customer said, okay, I'm going to pay this extra $5 to get the food faster or something. If that's the reason why, then that might be why they're not tipping, because they just kind of figure, okay, I just, that was my tip there.
Yeah, that's
I got to watch that.
That's interesting. That's interesting logic. But then at the same time, it's like, there's only so much they can do if there's not any delivery drivers in that area. So you might put in a note for a speedy delivery, but if all the delivery drivers are outside of the box and outside of the area, I don't know what they can do, but you might be right. It's fascinating. And when I see it, it's like, you're like, wow, that's an hour of time is done in 15 minutes. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and it feels good.
That it's like, this is a delivery that should take me forever because of what they're paying.
Right.
By the way that Uber Eats does that. But I've been really pleasantly surprised by a lot of deliveries. And sometimes you get those and it's just like, where'd that come from?
Oh, I know. It's wild out there. What's the restaurant you think you pick up the most from in the Denver area?
Oh, I would say I've been doing a lot of Chipotle and Noodles and Company lately. And usually those are nice because they're quick, And it's like, I see something like that come in and, on a lot of those, they don't, especially Chipotle, they don't necessarily tip as much, but it's like, at least in my stores, in my area, I can go in, the food's ready. So it's just like you pull up, find a place to park, walk in, walk out, and you're on your way. And it's usually not very far that you're going for the delivery. So I tend to kind of grab a lot more of those. We got a little place here that it's called the Falafel House that is kind of close to where I live. And I'd never heard of it before or anything like that, but probably have had a lot of deliveries out of there because I think they rely real heavily on delivery stuff. So it's like one day, I'll go in and pick up an Uber Eats delivery that's only a mile away. And next thing you know, I got another one coming down on Grubhub for the same place. So I'll walk back in and they're kind of, well, wait, weren't you just with Uber Eats?
We just saw you here.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh, nope, Grubhub this time. So
is there a restaurant that you're that's become like a no zone because just like I know going in here, it's a time killer. It's going to take forever and it's not worth my energy and output. And there's like places now you'll decline.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay. We have Buffalo Wild Wings in the area, but they're not on Uber Eats. I've never accepted them. What's made the B-dub so difficult?
It is, and I think it varies on the stores. It's just inefficient. It's a horrible wait. And especially with the pandemic, it's been one of those places you go by and you got 20 guys standing outside, and it's like, oh, okay, this is not going to go well.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling.
And the worst thing is like, okay, well, they want you to go inside and check in, and then they'll come out and call you. But then the check-in is because they're starting to take diners inside now. So you got to stand in a certain spot, and this one store in particular, it's like, okay, you got to stand on the X. You got the X Nazis out there that making sure you're standing in the right place. But then the customers are walking right by you, so you're kind of like defeating the purpose of the social distancing that you're doing with the X's. But then they've got them set up, it's not a big enough lobby for it to make the logical line. So then the guy is standing on the X on the other side of the room could be jumping in real quick and checking in with them first. And then, and they don't have any real logic to how they handle stuff. And half the time the food's not ready.
Yeah.
And I've generally avoided them unless it was just like a really, really good paying order.
Yeah. Right.
And so they're one that I've definitely avoided a lot.
See, I feel like you and I combined could really do a good job on this, that we could almost be like, for my case, like an Uber Eats consultant to restaurants, because I feel like I have so much knowledge in my head now of when I go to a different restaurant, I could tell them how to improve everything. Like you're mentioning with Buffalo Wild Wings, on how we could get more efficient, how we could get the food out here, how we could get the line going. Granted, sometimes you just go to a place and it's one person trying to do 500 different things, and it's just impossible based on time. It's interesting. I don't think it's out by where you guys are, but there's this place called Bear Burger, which is a like local New Jersey, New York type chain. And what they do, which is really good, and this is really cool, and I'm always the spot is always ready. One time it wasn't ready ever, which is just remarkable. When the order comes in, it goes directly into the kitchen, so that the chefs and the cooks, they don't wait for the ticket to come to them from somebody in the actual part of the restaurant. It goes directly into their kitchen, and they see the order. So when you place that order through Uber Eats with them, and there's actually another party they use called Lunchbox, it automatically gets that order and saves you time. So I see that order to Bear Burger, and I'm like, I know it's going to be ready, because they've saved 10 minutes of just everything that goes in between with the delivery process straight into the kitchen, which I think is remarkable.
Yeah. You get some of those places that it really, and then you get to places that it's like, oh, shoot, we haven't checked the tablet. Like,
yes.
And that's a bigger problem really with the other places.
Right.
Because in a lot of cases, Uber Eats doesn't even send you the dispatch until the restaurant hits the button that says, hey, we're ready for delivery. And Grubhub will send you to the restaurant as soon as the order comes in. If things are fairly slow or, kind of normal. So you get there and it's like they haven't even had a chance to put it into the kitchen yet. And so, yeah, it's amazing. I think some of the differences. I think it's been one of the beauties of this pandemic, if there is such a thing, has been all of a sudden all of these restaurants are paying very careful attention to delivery because that's all they got going on.
Sure.
And so now all of a sudden we're not having to wait for everybody else is coming into the place to get their attention. And so many places are, they're setting their pickups there just for safety. So all the food is sitting out on a table or a shelf as you walk in.
Right.
And it's like, oh gosh, if you guys could just keep doing this, it'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the biggest, really the two biggest bottlenecks are in the restaurant and at the customer end. Usually traffic isn't too big of a deal, unless you're just certain times of the day, of course.
Right.
But most of the time it's that, getting the attention at the restaurant, getting in and out of the restaurant. And sometimes depending on where you're going, especially with apartment complexes, it's finding the customer. And, I wish more people were like, what Bear Burger was that you told about, because it'd just be so much faster if they just had a more efficient setup.
And I think it's interesting, too, because I know with your podcast and your website, you deal with a lot of the business aspects of being an independent contractor and being your own businessman. So for people that have to do their taxes with this, and I know this is like very different than the previous part of this conversation, but
sure,
the advice you would give to people that are trying to get ahead with maybe doing their taxes or not getting overwhelmed at the end because you're not taxed with everything. So even though you're making all this money, some of it's got to go away eventually. What would be your advice to delivery drivers on handling that so it doesn't become an overwhelming task and the best way to execute that so you're not going at the end, oh my goodness gracious, I'm screwed?
Well, and I think there's two ways you get screwed, and one is taxes and the other is your car. And so I think the best thing you can do is treat it like you're your employee and give yourself a paycheck. Don't spend that money before it gets in. And especially, you know, and I think it's more important the more you depend on the money that you're making.
Right.
You know, if you're out there just doing 5 or 10 hours a day or something like that, it's probably not going to be a big deal, and taxes probably aren't going to hit you as hard because some of your, you know, what you're getting taken out of your other paycheck is probably covering a good part of it.
Right.
But if you're like me, where this is my only income is doing delivery, it's really important that you're staying on top of that. So I do really 3 things each week. Is I have the money come deposited to a different account other than my checking account, and then I'll take out 25 cents a mile for every mile I've driven, and I put that in an operation fund. And that way the money is there when I need new tires, when I need an alignment, when I need an oil change, you know, and that's what I take my gas money out of. And then when the car wears out eventually, because it will wear out, you know, I've got that money in there that is kind of making up for that difference that you've got to pay because of all the miles that you put onto your car. You know, you trade in a car with 100,000 miles, you're going to get a lot less money than, you know, if you trade in a car with 40,000 miles,
right,
and stuff like that. And that's the thing a lot of people don't think about. But it's like, you know, do that 25 cents a mile, and that takes care of your car stuff. And then I figure real quick, kind of just a quick profit on what I've earned. You know, take your 58 cents a mile times however I've done, that's my expenses. Take that off of what I brought in, and then 20% of that I put into a tax savings account. And then about $40 or $50 a week I will put into a paid time off fund. That way I can take some time off, or if I get sick, or if you decide you got to take some time off because of this pandemic or something like that, you know, then you got something that you can still have some income coming in. But that's something that I really think people ought to do, especially if you're relying a lot on the money you're doing, because what it does is it gives you a real idea of what you're really making.
Right.
And if you're sitting there saying, well, I can't afford to take that 25 cents and I can't afford to take that 20% because I don't have enough left over, then what you're telling yourself is you're not really making enough money.
Bingo.
Because you're going to need that. You're going to need that money for your car, and you're going to need that money for your taxes.
Bingo.
So take it out right away, and you have a better idea of what you're really making.
Very, very good advice. And also I think that's good advice for putting stuff away for those days off fund, because, you know, there's no paid time off. So when you're off, that's money that's not going into your pocket. You know, and it's like, you want to take off a holiday, you want to take off a day here and there because you know, you don't want to drive yourself insane just working that many hours. So I think that's really great advice. Sort of beyond the taxes part of it is just having a layout and an idea of what you're actually making, and not just, and obviously it fluctuates because you're hustling and some days are going to be better than others. That's a fantastic idea, which is leading me to my next question. And I'm not sure if you saw this, but there's a man in Salem, Oregon, who did he lost his job. He's 26 years old, and he decided to do like a challenge, and it's getting him a lot of attention where he could see if he could earn $8,000 in a week. Now, he's working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's possible, and that would put him on pace to make more than $100,000. So it's possible to do that, but at the same time, you're working an 84-hour a week and never taking time off. So
I read that.
It's just interesting that you can, which is just all of this. Yes, you can make that kind of money if there's some variables. Yeah, you can make that type of money if you're in an area that's got that kind of delivery, especially what's going on right now. But then on the other hand, that's a lot to work. I mean, like, and I think I'm working a lot, but 84 hours a week with 12-hour days with no time off, that's a lot.
Yeah, you got to have a life. You got to have a life. And but I think it depends, because I think if I look back when I was 26 years old, that was maybe a different time, and so I probably would have been okay with that a little more. But then when you've got, when you got family and or like you and I, where we do this extra stuff, right? I've got the website and the podcast. You've got your podcast, and you've got all the projects you're working on with your network and stuff. That those things take up time.
Sure.
And so you want to you don't want to burn yourself out. And that's why that's one of the reasons I do that vacation fund. And I've gotten to a point where I really try and limit myself to, between 30 and 40 hours a week. And just for that reason, because I don't want to get to a point where I just hate going out and delivering, because I've just done it so much. But yeah, it is something that I think a lot of people don't realize, that you can make a lot of money doing this delivery.
Yeah, you really can. I think because people saw that headline, and a lot of people reached out to me because when they saw it and they know my connection, the first thing they said was $100,000. Is this real? Is this possible? Yeah. And it's what you're saying. Yes, it's possible. Yes, you can make a lot of money, but at the same time, you need to have a life and you need to connect the dots. So it is interesting though that the money is out there. You don't want to kill yourself doing this.
Well, yeah, but the other thing though is, it sounds like an awful lot of money, $8,000. But then I ran the numbers. I kind of assumed about a 25 cent, because I think he even told how many miles he drove. I kind of assumed about a 25 cent a mile actual cost by the time you do. I think he's got a little bit newer car, so it's probably costing him more.
Right.
On the minimum, it's going to cost you about 25 cents a mile to run your car. By the time you get your depreciation, all your maintenance that you're going to have to do, all the different things that go with that. So, I figured that out. And then I looked at all the hours, and it was like, if you had a $15 an hour W-2 job that paid time and a half after 40 hours, it actually equated to only about a $15 an hour job. So it's like, yeah, that's a lot of money, but at the same time, where are you going to find a $15 an hour job that's going to let you work 72 hours a week?
Right. Exactly.
And pay that much overtime,
exactly.
So, there's that side of it. But, I think it's one of the things I love about this though, is you can do as little or as much as you want to do.
Agreed.
And man, if you got the time and you're okay with just going out there and busting your butt, you can make a lot of money. And I think that, he's not going to make $100,000 a year. Right. And the reason is that, he's doing this during a time when delivery business is so high.
Yeah.
So I'm making probably about 25% higher as far as my hourly average right now than I was before this pandemic started. And it's starting to go down. It's starting to get back to normal. And so I think he could still be at about $70,000 or $80,000 in a whole year's time if you want to work $365 or 365 days a week.
Right.
So it's all kind of depends on what you want to do.
Completely agree with everything you just said, and I've enjoyed talking. We could probably do this for hours. We'll have to do it again because I know our brains are just fueled with pun intended, I guess, fueled with different ideas and concepts from being on the road and doing so many deliveries. And then, of course, having our podcast. I highly recommend checking out the Deliver On Your Business podcast, entrecourier.com. Great information there. So every episode I ask my guests 2 different questions. If you've listened to this podcast, you have an idea of maybe what they're coming here.
Yeah.
And just be completely honest. So the first one is the best thing you ate in the last 7 days from right now.
I would say the barbecue chicken from HelloFresh.
Okay.
About 1 or 2 days a week, my wife prepares something out of a HelloFresh where you get it all shipped in.
Oh yeah, I know.
And it's been amazing actually how good the stuff is that they're sending for food that is shipped in. But anyway, that was good stuff.
Gotcha.
And
no, I understand. My wife and I do something called. Have you heard of Gobble?
I have not.
It's another version of HelloFresh, and it's something we do here. And some meals are better than others, but sometimes I'm like, this is fantastic. I mean, it's like, some things are more hit or miss, but when you get a good meal, it's like, it's great. I love it.
Do you still have to do all the cooking on that?
You still have to do the cooking, but a lot of it's prepared. The sauces are ready to go. If you have something like a rice or rice, obviously, but a mashed potatoes and different things you just heat up. And then the proteins, obviously, you have to cook. But most of the lettuces and vegetables are already pre-chopped. So super simple and a lot of a time saver.
Yeah, it's been kind of in between because and I've prepared them a couple of times, and first time in my life that I ever zested a lemon. I never knew you could zest a lemon.
You can, yeah. Lemon zesting's a thing. I'm actually going to adapt on the fly here because it's been in my head. I should have thought of this. I'm going to add another question to my ending. It's going to be now 3 moving forward. So you can remember this, Ron. You're making Mike Delivers history with me. Would you prefer, because it's my wife's very passionate about this topic, cake or pie? Which one do you prefer?
Oh, man. Yeah, I heard you guys talking about that. I remember what you said about pie. It depends on what it is.
I need an answer.
I tell you what, you get a good, hot, fresh cherry pie, and not a whole lot better than that.
Okay.
Man, I tell you, there's some cake, so
hard-hitting question.
I'm going to go with the pie.
All right, pie's the answer. Don't feel pressure because my wife's like, really a jerk about it. So don't feel bad about that. And then finally, 6 months from now, you're sending out your wedding invitations, pandemic over, everything's good. We can even pretend it didn't happen to make this even easier, and people are going to events. Am I invited to your wedding?
Oh, well, I'm not having any wedding anytime soon. My kids, I'm going to say probably not because it's pretty much all up to them.
I just want the honesty. That's fine with me. We've only met twice. It's been through Zoom. I have no one. You shouldn't be inviting me. I get it. It's all good.
We just had my stepdaughter just got married. So here's a fun little fact. This second marriage for my wife and I. We both bought 5 kids into the wedding or into the marriage. So we were like the Brady Bunch on steroids.
Yes.
Fortunately, most of them are out of the house now. So
yes.
So that's a huge help with the grocery bill. We just had my stepdaughter got married, and of course she had a big backyard wedding all planned out and everything, and of course COVID put the kibosh on that, and they still decided they wanted to go through with it, and they just ended up doing a Zoom wedding. So it was just like, about half a dozen people from our family and half a dozen from hers, and but they put it up on Zoom and stuff like that. So that was a very different experience.
Yeah, really. Wow, cool. Very cool way to end this podcast. Ron, appreciate your time. Make sure everybody checks out Deliver on Your Business podcast. I highly recommend it. Head over to the entrecourier.com as well. More information and great content to follow. So thank you for coming on the Mike Delivers pod.
Thanks, Mike. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for the time, Ron. Really enjoyed our conversation. Deliver on Your Business podcast, entrecourier.com. All of Ron's information, they will be in the show notes. So if you want to check out more of his podcasts, more information on his website, I highly recommend you go there. If you're a delivery driver like me, it's a fascinating podcast to get tips and information and help you improve your delivery driver status and get better at your gig. Really appreciate that. Episode 92 is coming out on Thursday. This dropped on a Tuesday, and Seafood Month continues. I'm recording this bad boy outside of the Joe's Crab Shack in Clifton. And we had food from here the other day, and I'll just say this, good or bad, it's an all-time conversation on the Mike Delivers podcast. If you head over to my social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Mike Delivers Pod, you can see my reaction to trying the appetizer sampler. That'll be a little clue if I liked it or did not like it. But it's coming out on Thursday, 92, episode 92. Really cool shit right there. A lot of shout-outs, a lot of thank yous. Thank you to the O'Brien Creative Group. Thank you to The Beautiful Noise. That's the music you hear right now. This podcast would not be the same without them. They are the soundtrack to Mike Delivers. Thank you also to Ron from Deliver on Your Business Podcast and EntreCourier.com for coming on the Mike Delivers podcast. Really appreciate that. Don't forget, 5-star rating on Apple. If you haven't done it already, just do it, please. Why not? It's good for us. It's good for the brand, as episode number 100 is right around the corner. This has been episode 91. We'll see you next time for some really shitty crap. Ooh, I gave it away. Okay, sorry. Little tease. Episode 92. If I was your boyfriend, I'd never let you go. I can take you to your place you ain't never been before. Baby, take a chance or you'll never even know. I got money in my hands that I'd really like to blow. Swag, on you. Chillin' by the fire while we're eating fondue. I don't know about me, but I know about you. Say hello to my facade with 2, 3, 2 swag. I'd like to be everything you want. Hey girl, let me talk to you. If I was your boyfriend, never let you go. Keep you on my arm, girl, and never be alone. I can be a gentleman, anything you want. If I was your boyfriend, I'd never let you go. I'd never let you go. Like, yeah, tell me what you don't. I could hear you cause light year fly across the globe. I don't wanna fight, yeah, you already know. I'ma make your sakes bright like all for the snow. Bieber, you go fast. Girlfriend, you could be my girl. I'm done. Too much Bieber.